everyone, welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Chat. We have been gone for a little while because it has just been a busy year so far, but I'm very excited about this episode because we have managing partner, attorney Antonia Hays, who is going to be speaking about her experience as a woman in law, going through law school, and everything in between. So you can do a little bit of an introduction. Who are you? Where are you from?
Great. I'm Antonia Hays. I'm a co-owner of Hays Firm, LLC. I was born in Rochester, New York. Did not spend very much time there. My folks came to Chicago early 70s, mid to late 70s. And so I've been in the Chicagoland area for most of my life, with some sporadic moves around, but yeah.
I actually had no idea that you were born in New York.
You didn't?
No, I don't think you've ever mentioned that.
Yeah, I was born in Rochester, New York.
Okay,
My dad and mom came to this country the year I was born in '74 from Croatia, and my dad came here to play professional soccer, so that's what brought us here to the States. And Rochester, he played for, the reason it was Rochester, New York is because he played for a professional team there.
Okay. Did your parents end up going to college, or were you like a first generation student?
No, I am a first generation college grad, and obviously then law school and whatever followed therefrom. But yeah. What
was that experience like, not having like the typical guidance as someone whose parents maybe have gone to four-year universities?
Oh, I essentially did the decision making, all of that on my own. I think, I didn't really have very many role models. My entire extended family still to this day is in Croatia. So it was a very intimate, my mom, my dad, myself, and we had, obviously in Chicago, there's a lot of different ethnic communities, and Croatians happen to be one of them, as I'm sure you understand as a Romanian.
Yes.
So in any event, the answer to your question is, I really did a lot of that on my own. There was one particular friend who had a dad. He was an attorney, and I remember going to his office just to sort of talk to him. Specifically remember going, to a high rise and going up onto whatever floor it was, and it had that sort of notion of like opening up, and I went into his office, and it was all cherry wood and dark and big desks.
Like exactly what you pictured in your mind.
Oh, especially then, that was quite a few years ago. And I remember thinking, I want to sit at a desk like this with a big chair. It felt very powerful, despite the fact whether it was or it wasn't is irrelevant. But from my perspective, it was something I was like, I think I want to do this.
Did you decide that you wanted to go into this career early on? It sounds like you kind of knew from like more of a younger age. Or when did you discover that?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I remember I remember arguing with my parents all the time. And they, would say to me, "Oh, you should be a lawyer. You know how to argue. That's all you know how to do. You should be a lawyer." And somewhere that stuck. And I really felt like it was, and I really like the sort of reasoning aspect. I love the rational, the logical, despite being also very emotional. I really like using that part of my mind. So, yeah.
So you are growing up, you have this cool experience where you get to go in and see a law firm in person. So how did you end up thinking about law school, like where you wanted to go? Did you know you wanted to stay in Chicago? Were you thinking about going back to New York?
No, I went to undergrad at Loyola University, and simply, it's expensive to go to school, to go to not only undergrad but law school, and I ended up getting a sizable scholarship from Loyola as an undergrad to go to Loyola Law School. So that was really the nail in the coffin for me, so to speak, on where I was going to go. I thought about going out east to DC, because I was a political science major. I love politics, but that didn't pan out.
No,
so here I am.
I feel like a big factor in a lot of students, like I'm looking at law schools,
Yes.
and it's a lot is weight on like scholarships because it is like double the price of undergrad.
Yes, it is.
Which is almost not even that common of a known thing. Like my parents had no idea, and I was
Mhm.
like, well, that kind of layers down like where you want to go.
It really does. Yeah, it's definitely a
Mhm.
consideration. I mean, it's a huge consideration.
To what extent do you think that your law school impacted your future like success in your career? Because I know a lot of people think like you have to go to like a top 5 law school in order to get good networking. Like, do you think that
I definitely disagree with that.
Okay.
I mean, I disagree to the extent that I am a firm believer of you can go anywhere and make the best of the situation. It is truly, I mean, I think I have made very good relationships with my professors in law school. Like I said, I was very sort of independently driven, with not a lot of mentorship, not a lot of guidance. So building those relationships at that time I thought was beneficial.
So where did you start working once you got out of law school? What was your first like big girl
What was
job?
my first big girl? I think my first, and I'm pretty sure about this, my first big girl job was at a mid-sized law firm.
Okay. What is mid-size for anyone who doesn't know?
I would say mid-size is about 35 attorneys.
Okay.
And I had great mentors there. Really, really great mentors who really helped me with my writing. I would say that first job really honed my writing skills, which I think are imperative for lawyering. Would give a law partner your brief. They would tell you to write a brief or tell you, here's the situation, write something up. And that's before sort of editing online and redlining and things like that. It was literally a red pen on paper and
They're just scratching it out. Wow.
So that was, and I thought it's very humbling.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
was
say.
very humbled my first year. Not even my first year. I would say my first 7 years. I was very humbled.
Oh, okay.
Oh yes, I think it takes about 7 years to really get comfortable to be an attorney,
Wow,
especially a litigator. I came out of the box. I was thrown into court without knowing anything about it, how to approach it. I mean, nothing.
Nerve-wracking.
Yes, very nerve-wracking, and it was often, your heart's racing, you're nervous. I mean, that still happens today. I think if you care about what you're doing, there should always be a little butterfly in your stomach. It keeps you on your toes. Yeah. So that was the first job.
It sounds intense.
It was very intense. And maybe at third, I don't know if it's. I wonder today. You'll have to let us know what it's like. Yeah.
In 4 years.
Depending on where you end up. Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving the conversation along, how do you think that your personal life and your career started to merge as you got more into the law?
That's an interesting question. Okay. Well, when I was working at this mid-sized firm, I didn't meet Andy. It was a re-meeting of Andy, who is my partner and spouse here at Hays Firm. We reconnected. We knew each other in undergrad. We reconnected when I was a new attorney, and Andy had talked about potentially going to law school. So he went to law school while I was a first year attorney. 2 years maybe into it, and so we came together both with knowing that we would be both practicing law at some point. And then I went on to a smaller firm. I did some dabbling in different areas of the law, always kind of maintaining being a litigator. And then when Andy finished law school, took the bar, he worked for a smaller firm for a minute. And then one day we just decided that it was time. We had 2 little kids at home. We decided that we would start our own firm without a client. And that's what we did.
What was your first step after deciding this is what we want to do? Let's partner together. Let's start our own firm.
I was working at that time when he left his job for a firm, and we sort of, I had to have some sort of income while you're starting a new firm, so kept that going for a minute, and then my third child, Thomas, was on his way, and we decided that, I just started to work from home. I left my job, and I was working from home behind the screen, big belly, and helping Andy kind of navigate this new business that we decided to create.
So kind of on the topic of like children, you have like so much going on, you're leaving your like job, it's like the security of it and jumping into something new.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, Ms. Hays does have 4 children, and that is a lot.
It is.
At the same time as having a career. So how did you manage all that? Like, did you end up leaving and then coming back, or what was kind of the dynamic?
It was, I have always had I've always had a toe in the work. It has been in varying degrees. I've always been involved behind the scenes in some way, even if my physical presence wasn't felt. I was always doing work on the side, helping sort of figure out, how to manage the business and the kids. Never did it alone. Maybe I got to law school alone, but I never did this part alone. There was always, my mom was in the background helping me with my children. We decided to live nearby them when the girls were little, and we started our firm, so I had support in that way. Always had people in my life that were able to help us to do it, because I don't think we could have done it without having some support.
No, that's great to hear, because a lot of young women think that you either be a career woman or you be a family woman, and there's no in between, because it sounds incredibly challenging to balance.
It is, and I would not say that it's easy to balance, and I don't mean to give that. In fact, it's been
it's honest.
Very difficult, very challenging most of the time, and has really required a level of flexibility and being very nimble, because this situation, a small business, changes all the time, as you've seen in the short time that you've been here. Things are, they're constantly in flux. Things are constantly in flux when you have a small business, and you have to be able to jump in where you're needed, when you're needed.
Do you think that this like desire for flexibility was the reason that you were kind of attracted to this area of law?
I think having our own business
is more so
what led us into the desire for the ability to be super flexible. You don't just walk out that door and shut the door and be done
for the day.
No, and that's it. Most attorneys that I know are hard working people. For a lot of attorneys, I think it's true that they kind of take their work home with them, for better or for worse. I mean, that could be for worse, but when it's your own business, you don't really have a choice. It's, they're meshed, and especially since I work with my spouse, that's a whole different caboodle.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I think this was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that the viewers did as well.
I always like chatting with you.
Oh, thanks. In a future episode, we're thinking about talking more specifically about the attitude towards women in law, and like the specific experiences and being encouraged or discouraged by different people. That's a whole other conversation, but that's something that we're definitely thinking about doing. Let us know if you have any questions that you would like answered.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, happy to do that.
And thank you for listening to this episode.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And have a good day, everyone.
Bye.